Welcome back to another episode of That Sound Podcast. And if you love music, you're in the right place. Today we are joined by Metallica fan AJ, and we are going to recap the most recent Metallica show in Virginia Tech Stadium, in Lane Stadium. First of all, AJ, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
How is the body after the show?
The body after the show, I'm doing all right. And in all fairness though, I have to say we drove 4 hours home after the show. So it's more of a little tired
Yeah, that's
the
that's
day after.
so.
Um,
Yeah, 4 hours of a drive. Yeah, that's tough. Oh, were you driving yourself, or were you a passenger, or?
so I have a buddy of mine, Matt, who flew in from Reno, and we both kind of drove down and back to the show. So I do live in Virginia, but I live up kind of near the DC area,
Right.
and so we both kind of said like, hey, kind of what a unique opportunity. I know that there are several people in Virginia that are alumni of Virginia Tech, and actually part of our crew that went down to the show. The wife is an alumni of Virginia Tech, so I know that there's definitely some people that have that interesting connection to the college, to the band,
Yes.
and putting that all together is always an awesome combination.
Yeah, 100%. And am I right in saying that this was the first show, like music festival show, to ever be played in Lane Stadium?
Yeah, I actually didn't know that until someone else told me that. So we were actually in the snake pit, and of course, been to a number of shows where we know enough people now,
Yeah.
and a couple of people have been sharing that this actually was the first concert at Lane Stadium. So what better way to break it in?
Well, even in little country over here in Ireland, even we've seen the videos that the Virginia Tech run out to, of course, Enter Sandman. And before we get into the set, I know they done a kind of a promo at the start and then they played it at the end, but I can only imagine, and I can't wait to hear all about it, what the intensity was like. But AJ, so you got Snake Pit.
Yeah, so I guess on this year's tour, we there's the option to just buy just a regular like snake pit ticket.
Yes.
I know that that's been there are opportunities, all sorts of the different packages, and we've done some of the different packages across the M72 tour.
Yeah.
We've done Frantic a bunch of times, which is
Okay.
the early entry and
Yes.
usually in the rail, a good spot on the rail for most of the shows that we've done so far in this tour. But this time around, where we decided, yeah, let's just get the snake pit tickets.
Yeah.
And so we had a blast with it. Of course, the snake pit's always fun.
Well, please someday I'll get in there. I haven't yet got there. The closest that I've got was when Metallica came to Ireland to Slane Castle. And
Hmm.
I got into the Gold Circle, which I spoke about before, and I got pretty close, but there was a very small snake pit on that tour in Europe. And yeah, there was like really only maybe, I'd guess maybe 200 people in the snake pit at that time. But the Gold Circle was pretty good. But please God, I'll get to the snake pit someday. So let's talk quickly about the chapter you're involved with, Damage Justice DC. How long has it been around, or are you big into it? Are you one of the original members?
Yeah, so I'm the chapter head.
Oh,
I'm the
nice.
OG. Where we I can't think around like COVID time, I was just kind of starting to think about like, I wanted to maybe get involved in a chapter, try to do something. And it is kind of a funny story. There is another chapter that's in Virginia.
Right.
And I kind of like went to their website, just to kind of see like, all right, what does it take to kind of be involved,
Yeah.
and didn't really get a response, didn't really get, a whole lot from it. And I just had thought like, well, what the heck? Like, let's just go ahead. Like, let's try to start something. Um, uh, at the time, I was a little bit more active on the Metallica forums online. I knew that there were some other people in the Virginia area and DC area as a whole. So that incorporates Maryland as well, plus the District of Columbia.
Yeah.
That were all interested in like, hey, like let's see if this starts up. Like, even if it stays small, like let's just have some fun with it. Well, as we kind of started to, became established chapter, kind of word was getting out a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
And it quite literally reignited Virginia Fuel again. And I've come to know Ted, who's the chapter head now of Virginia Fuel, very well. And we're actually not really we're not competitive with each other. We're actually just kind of having some fun with it. You know,
Yeah.
their chapter, tip of the cap. They have a huge crew. They're a great group of people.
Yeah.
We've done some events together, with Damage Justice DC and
Yeah.
Virginia Fuel. So
Yeah.
they're good people. We're good people.
Yeah. All part of the
So
family, AJ, right?
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Even last night at the show, we had a chance to get a couple of the city picks, and I want to make sure Ted and another one of his chapter members, we're taken care of because we're all one big family.
100%. Yeah. I recently joined a chapter too, actually. Let me just grab this. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with it. One second. This one is based in Ireland. It's called they call it Keltulu.
Aha.
So again, I'm not sure how it's difficult over here because everybody's in technically different countries. You know,
Hmm.
it's Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and I believe I don't want to get it wrong. I'm a new member, so funny enough, I don't believe there's an Irish chapter by themselves. I know there's a lot of
Okay.
Irish fans that travel around, but there's no actual chapter. But that's the closest thing I got. So I need to get invested into that because it is important. It is good. Like as I talk to everybody, AJ, like going to the shows is important. But I believe, and I hope you agree, that bonding with other Metallica fans and from different chapters and shooting the shit and telling stories, that's a lot to do with going to these shows as well. I believe anyway. I hope you
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely. So a big thing for me is connection,
Yeah.
and I think that, whether you're involved with a local chapter or you find other ways, to be connected, I think that's what a lot of people appreciate about the Metallica family, especially you get a couple shows under your belt and you start to see some familiar faces. Hopefully, you don't have any issues going up and saying hi to somebody that seems familiar, introduce yourself, and then there's all sorts of things that connect over within the band.
Yeah.
And within going to see shows, but that connection I think is big for a lot of people, and it shows that's why the family is what it is.
It is what it is right, AJ. So AJ, when did you fall in love with Metallica? What is your wee story?
Uh, I probably, if I had to pinpoint it, probably for me is about like 92, 93. Um, I had just at school I had a friend of mine who handed me handed me a tape. It was the Master of Puppets tape, and started right at the beginning with Battery, and it was just overload of like, I can't believe like that this is like it's so tight, it's so crunchy. Like there's something about Battery to me that just like it was an immediate sink into it.
Okay.
Um, so I started with the Puppets album, and just kind of, you know, took a while to digest that.
Yeah.
And then probably like a lot of kids in the 90s, it was like, all right, I got my 20 bucks. I'm going to go to the albums, go to the CD store, go see what, album I want to pick out next.
Yes.
So I think then I went backwards. I went to Ride, um, then Justice. And then I have to give a lot of credit to my sister. My Christmas present that next year was, I think it was the year after that, that I ended up getting the Binge and Purge box set.
Oh yeah.
And so that was a huge jump for me of like, okay, like, processing, the albums, I kind of didn't really know everything at that point.
Yes.
Um, but, to kind of jump in and then just to kind of see that live element of the band where it's just like, oh my, I can't believe what I just, connected with, with that. I was like,
Yeah.
this is fantastic. So
Yeah.
then, I had to do all the backfilling at that point, all right, kill them all, kind of fill in a little bit more with the Black Album, and kind of make sure at that point. And that was all before Load was released. So
Oh yeah.
Load for me was the first like release
Yes.
that I was a fan of,
Hmm.
and kind of I remember, taping on the radio, knowing that the Until It Sleeps single was going to get played, and just,
Yes.
having some recording of that. And that Poor Touring Me was actually my first show. It was Uniondale, New York, February 28th, 1997.
Wow. Wow. What's your take on the Load and Reload albums?
Um, it was interesting because, I kind of like I even though it wasn't as the Black Album was being released, like, I kind of became a fan during that tenure. So, going back, like, yeah, I heard Sandman, heard the other things. You can kind of see, like, yeah, that was definitely a little bit more in the rock realm, than the metal.
Yes.
Um, and starting off with Until It Sleeps, like, I didn't care so much about the haircuts. I didn't care so much about the
Yeah.
other things. It was just more of, I still liked it, but you could just kind of tell it was a bit different.
Mm.
Um, and seeing them live, I mean, it's what it is. You kind of get engrossed in the production, especially on that tour. And I guess fortunately, from having that Binge and Purge box set, I
Yeah.
kind of knew, well, like, look, they pull some stunts every once in a while.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, the whole stage deconstruction at the
Yes.
end of the show.
Yeah.
It
Fire.
was always a thought in the back of your head of just like, I'm pretty sure that was a staged thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my first live show, and unfortunately, I took a long break for, I can't even say whatever reason, for seeing live shows. For me, I kicked back up in 2017.
Wow.
So I still love the band.
Yes.
Maybe the Saint Anger era and kind of the break after Jason's departure. Like, I maybe took some time and listened to some other music.
Okay.
Um, but after Death Magnetic got released, and unfortunately, I missed that tour. I love Death Magnetic, but
Oh
I missed
yeah.
that tour. Like, oh man, I really wish I can kind of get back into it. So at that point, 2017, to skip all the way forward to that, I'm married at that point. We are two kids, about to have our third, and like begging my wife, like, I please just have a night away to go catch a show again.
I know the feeling.
So, and actually, that was the Baltimore show that kicked off that tour that year. And I won the contest to do the live sound check the night before.
Oh shit.
So it was so cool because it was about 300 people,
Oh,
um, and it was just that kind of, it was a sound check. It was casual, it was.
kind of seeing
They
them
ended up
relax.
broadcasting that on YouTube, so people can go check that out. But it was just a really kind of neat way for me to kind of get my way back into it.
Sweet, sweet. And you've been on the ride ever since?
Yeah. So since 2017, what is it now? With the Virginia Tech show being just last night, I think that's 22 shows since 2017. So I've picked up a few. I know there's some other dedicated ones out there that
Oh,
definitely have more shows than me, but it's not about the count. It's about having some fun with it.
yeah, yeah. Like, I'm not even close to that. I'm up at like 10 shows, maybe 11. Uh, I lived in New Jersey for a couple of years. So just when you mentioned Dead Magnetic, I caught the Dead Magnetic show in the Prudential Center in New Jersey, up in Newark, and the indoor show. And it was the one and only time I caught Metallica indoor. And that album, like you kind of touched on, that was the I think that was the firecracker that we all wanted or was waiting for. That was like the Justice 2.0 or whatever, was back to
Hmm.
the fast, trashy, you know, just intensity. It was back. But funny, just going back on Load and Reload, I went the other way. I'll just tell you quickly my story. I kind of started on the Black album, because I was born in '86, so I was a little bit younger or whatever. But by the time I got the Black album, I was probably about 10, and then I went back to the other albums, the previous stuff. But I remember getting Load and Reload then, and similar. I'm like, I kind of liked where this train was going. But you know what? As age goes on and as life goes on, marriage and kids and stuff, I fucking love Load. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so funny how music, changes where a certain album you might really hate when you're younger and you love, or you love when you're younger and now you hate. It's interesting. That's the beauty of music too. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, like, think about the age that they all were in the band at the time of
Oh,
that, and then at least for me, like, I'm in my 40s now, my early 40s, and I can kind of appreciate, like, okay, maybe there are things that are, you want to change things a little bit. You want
mm,
something that's fresh and exciting, and maybe it takes you in a different direction.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I liked Load. I'm probably one of many. Like Reload was not my favorite album. I felt like it was here's like four or five good songs, with a bunch of others that just kind of it's what
Hello.
was left over.
Yeah,
Um, but um, but if you also think about that though, like those two albums then spawned S&M.
yeah,
It was kind of then the Garage Inc. era, which I think that like that stretch from 96 to 99, it was a wild ride.
yeah,
There
yeah.
definitely were, a bunch of different things. And maybe that came from the experimentation. Maybe it came from doing something different. And I think that we're better as fans for it.
100%. And it showed how good the band were as a unit, that they weren't afraid to experiment. And funny, I talked before, and I think like Load and even some of the Reload stuff, maybe Fixer and that, like it's some of James's best writing, I think. And even like the Outlaw Torn and stuff like that. I just feel like James opened up a little bit in his songwriting. He kind of gave us a little peek into his sensitivity, and which he is to this day. He's quite anxious and he doesn't like big crowds. And we all idolize this madman that we seen on stage that we loved, and that right hand and everything. But we just got a little peek into the deeper chapters of James Hetfield, I feel, in them couple of albums, which was pretty cool. Um,
Yeah, I'm excited for the box set to come out. We
I
can actually
know, yeah,
dive into that a little bit more and kind of see because I keep hearing about the how James felt like they had to whip things into shape. Like a lot of the ideas kind of came from Kirk and Lars, and then James kind of coming in a little bit later to kind of
yes.
help steer that ship a little bit. So I'll be interested to see some of that kind of studio work and demo work, to kind of
The
to get
extended
to
version
get
too.
to where it was.
Yeah, the extended version of the Outlaw Torn. I'm pretty interested to hear that too.
Oh, you can hear it now. You
Oh, is it out the full? I don't think I've ever heard it. I
So
don't.
yeah, it was I think on one of the singles that it was released. I'm sure it's on YouTube as
Oh, is
well.
it? Maybe I.
So I think it's like an extra minute or so that was always there, but they had to pull it back to make it fit on the
You fit
CD.
on the CD. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Before we get into the set list, I'm going to push you for favorite album by Metallica.
Um,
At the moment, I'm sure it changes. I know mine does.
my top two are pretty resolute. It's always going to be Puppets for me. Puppets, and maybe it was just kind of where I started with it.
Yes.
I do play guitar, and I connect with trying to play. I am not James. My right hand is not what James is. But just the challenge of it, the kind of the way that it is, the aggressiveness, like I love that. My number two is Death Magnetic.
Oh, okay.
But I will say, Puppets is always going to be number one.
It's always the one that you start with, right? It's always the one that kind of, resonates with you, that, you get first. Like you said, there's so many people I chat to. It's always that older figure or an older brother or sister that gives you that album. And that album for me was the Black Album. But then when I went back to the guy that gave me the Black Album, he's like, "You don't think it's too heavy or stuff?" I'm like, "No, no, give me more." And he
Yeah.
and he gave me Justice. And okay, I know Justice, the production and all that, but still, I love Justice. I love it. So it's funny. It's always that one that you remember. And I'm like what you talked about earlier, like the intensity, and like you're listening to this thing going, what is this? And Justice for me, done it for me. So it's interesting to hear everybody's top two. So let's get into the set list quickly.
Okay.
You're tight for time.
No.
How was the sound actually before? I actually was looking at photographs. I think I was actually looking at your photographs online last night, and it is a pretty open stadium.
It is. Well, we were facing the student section, so that side, there was a decent amount of student seats on that, but it is more open than what was behind us because they had the suites, the kind of the higher sides of that stadium, kind of in a little bit of a horseshoe shape. So I'll call it the open end, but there still is a healthy size student section that was there.
Yeah.
Um, sound from inside the snake pit is always an interesting experience, especially because we were right. If you know the stage, we were right on that, like at the dip, at the center point of the dip,
Okay.
inside the pit. So there's that little yellow,
Yes.
semicircle piece that they have the wedge monitors on. And so from a sound perspective, it's always interesting because as band members come close,
Yeah.
they turn on those monitors. They turn them off when they're not
Oh,
close.
okay. It's for them just
Um,
to hear. Okay.
and there's a fraction of a second difference between the monitors and the PA.
Oh, so you're getting a little bit.
So
Okay.
you get a little bit of dissonance with that. But the trade-off is if those monitors are on, somebody's playing right in front of you. You know,
Yeah.
somebody's, having a blast with it, and I forget what song is one of the last songs. Like Rob came right up to us, like put the bass like up to us, like, yeah, okay, we'll play your bass for you, at the end of the song. Um, so there's the experience part of that. So sound wise though, I still think it sounded pretty good.
Pretty good. That's good to hear.
I did not hear any crazy acoustics. I'll say, like, we were our first stops on this tour was in Montreal, and they played in that stadium. I think it was the first show that they played there in a couple of years. I'll be honest, Montreal did not sound great. It was loud because
Okay.
everything was enclosed. Um, but there was a lot of echoes there. Wasn't a whole lot of echoing last night, just kind of the open air stadium.
That's good.
It sounded pretty good.
Yeah, because I've Chris was on with us and we reviewed Toronto and he said Toronto wasn't fantastic. So I guess maybe the shape of the diamond, I guess, and the baseball stadium probably doesn't help. But good to hear that it was good sound last night. So let's get into the set list. So,
Yeah.
of course, we get the usual. It's a long way to the top. Metallica's getting ready. The goosebumps are coming. The chills are coming. Excitement's coming. And then the ecstasy of gold. I don't care how many shows I go to, I'll still turn into that 8-year-old child again.
hmm
You know. But what was the story when they done the Enter Sandman, the promo with the Virginia Tech logos on the screen?
So yeah, so we're in the middle of ecstasy, and at first I think it was kind of like they were showing the video that they normally show, and then it was kind of
Yes.
glitching through that, and then as uh as things were kind of progressing, it was just like, oh, like then all of a sudden they started kind of cut in, with some other, it was starting to like turn into Sandman, like, oh, like what's going on with it now? Interestingly enough, as a guitar guy, like I'm a James guitar guy mostly. I see James has his OGV or his the one who currently plays. Like, yeah, I know he's not going to play Sandman on that guitar, but they're kind of rolling almost like an intro tape to that, to
Okay.
Sandman. So like, all right, given a little bit of the tease of kind of coming out to it, and then of course, run up on stage and roll right into Creep. So.
Oh, it's just a
Uh,
little tease.
it was a tease,
Okay.
but that's probably the first time that like I haven't had the full, well, maybe since the load and maybe a couple other shows, but didn't get the full ecstasy all the way through. It did not go all the way through to the end.
Oh, okay, okay. I guess, yeah, it was obviously different, but yeah, I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing then, because both I'm sure would have been amazing. Like I know when I hear Ecstasy Gold, I want to hear the whole lot. I want to sing the high and up and the down. I guess when that comes in as well, but because it's so relevant to the arena or the stadium, I guess it was pretty cool too. But it rolled in
It, it,
then.
it was messing with the mind a little bit, because
Yeah, it was kind of, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
also build the excitement a little bit.
Yes, yes. So roads into Creep and Death, of course, which they've been doing a lot on this tour. I'm sure it was amazing. What a song to
It
open with.
Yeah, it's just, and I love the lighting, everything that they do with Creep. Like the whole stadium's lit up red, the
Yes.
white spotlights. It's kind of like Spartan, but just powerful.
Yeah,
Uh, so it was a great version of Creep last night.
amazing. Just on that topic of the stage and that, what do you think of the stage? I think it's amazing. The towers and everything. What is your take
I
on it?
I like the towers, the screens. It's definitely a unique take. Um, I don't know that I'm in the minority. I'm not a huge fan of the stage, and maybe it's because of the other experiences that I've had. To that world wired, outdoor stage, where it's kind of that all end zone stage with the pit.
Yes.
If you're one of the lucky people that's gotten close to that, then you get quite an experience. So
Yeah.
that with the donut, even in the pit, there's a time that they're going to be completely on the other
I
side of
guess,
it
yeah, yeah.
and spending a lot of time there. So,
It's a good point.
um, but then again, I also kind of understand that they do the donut so that more people get that experience. You might not get it for the whole show, but
Yes.
you're gonna experience that at some point.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Okay, we'll keep going. So into Bells, Ride the Lightning. You can't beat that live. I just love Ride the Lightning. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Is there any standout tracks from say the first four, King Nothing then as well? Anything that stood out for you or?
Well, I saw like the set list was pretty similar to Syracuse.
Yes, I was going to say
And
that. Yeah,
and it's funny that the buddy that I drove with, we were talking about this on the drive home. They're like, I was kind of glad to get Ride over Lights. I think that they hit the Lights in Syracuse in that
that's right.
slot.
Yes.
Um, like I think Ride is it's a great song. I love the middle bit of it especially.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, with only one show, three Ride songs right in a row.
Yeah, they're playing a lot of Ride. Playing a lot of Ride, which is great because it's just so good. Like quickly on Ride the Lightning, I'm a big fan of Escape and Trapped Under Ice. I think that is a flawless album from start to finish. And then we get into the 72 Seasons songs, of course, the two slots, Lux Eterna and Screaming Suicide. Are you a fan of 72 Seasons, AJ? Of
Yeah, yeah. Some songs I connect with a little bit more than others, and that's probably everybody's experience.
course.
Lux Eterna it's a fun song. It's definitely a little bit faster paced. And to kind of, I don't want to skip to anything else, but they don't play a thrasher in this set list. So I guess, if you want to call Lux, you're kind of a little bit faster paced, but there's no battery, there's no blackened, there's no fight
Yeah.
fire with fire or hardwire, like there's just, so I guess Lux maybe fills the, I don't want to call that a thrasher, but maybe it kind of fills that faster paced song.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so then that, and then with Screaming Suicide, that song is kind of, I've gone through cycles with it where I feel like, I kind of appreciate it, then maybe like, I need a
Yeah.
break.
I'm the
And
same.
then
I'm not crazy about it. I'm actually a big fan of You Must Born, which they haven't played a lot. I think it's a very underrated song. And when I say that to people, they're like, yeah, yeah. But again, each to their own. But that one, I think I'd love to see in that slot, in that 72 season slot. So then you get the Doodle, Hell and Back.
Yeah. So I immediately connected with like, oh, it's a Death Magnetic song. But of course, like in that live moment, because they do like a little bit of a jam that's not anything
Yeah,
like
and then it
Metallica.
goes into it.
So,
Yeah.
and then they kind of slide into that. So you're trying to like figure it out on the fly. There's no drum tracks. I know the one, at least in Syracuse, that's the only one I listened to, the live Met release.
Yeah.
They had like this
Suicide,
kind of the
Suicide
fake
Redemption, wasn't it?
drum. I'm trying to remember. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're, but Kirk and Rob, they're having fun with it. And finally picked it up like, oh, this is Hell and Back. Like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
a lot of fun. And you know what? I kind of like that over them kind of choosing their own jam. It doesn't have to be the full blown song, and especially as somebody that appreciates Death Magnetic, like, all right, like let's hear a little bit of something.
Yes. Yes.
So cool little jam there.
Cool. And then, of course, then you got your Day That Never Comes, which I think I caught that in Madrid last summer. And it was a really standout track in Madrid. I think that song live is special. I really do. I think it's really built for a big arena. I don't know what it is about the song, but I don't know what it is. It suits a big arena. It suits a live show.
Yeah, and I guess it is in these singleton shows. It is the only, it's kind of your ballad song.
Yes.
There's no Fade to Black, there's no Sanitarian, there's no, other track that's kind of like that.
Yeah.
I will say I'm a big Death Magnetic fan.
Yes.
Um, uh, but The Day That Never Comes, like I do appreciate it.
Okay.
I kind of feel like I'm yearning for something a little different in that slot. That to me, and again, I like the song. I like that Magnetic. I felt like that was actually one of the weaker points in the set.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, like it definitely is the ballad, and like there is a lot more better tracks than that Magnetic. Um, Even the Unforgiven 3, I'd love to see in there. I was actually talking about that last night. I think the solo in the Unforgiven 3 is highly underrated. I think it's one of the best solos that Kirk does.
Yeah.
So then we roll into Fuel. You get the Pyro, of course. I'm sure that was fantastic. Orion, I love it too. Your favorite album, AJ? Like
Yeah.
what's your favorite instrumental? Is it Orion?
Um, I love Orion. It's hard to turn that one away, and I can't say that I dislike Cthulhu. I really like Suicide and Redemption. But I'm one of the weird people, I guess, that I really like To Live Is to Die, like especially that kind of like middle breakdown section, and kind of like that progression to the end of the song.
Yeah.
And actually, probably the same with Suicide and Redemption, like that middle breakdown and
Yeah.
on. I think it's phenomenal musicianship.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
good.
I would say To Live Is to Die actually probably is my favorite. I listen to that all the time.
Yes.
But am I going to kick Orion? No.
No.
It's a solid track, and I'll take it every time.
Yeah, To Live Is to Die is my favorite too. Again, you nailed it how you explained it. I think the emotion that's in that song and how it goes and that middle section as well. It's almost like you can feel the band's heart breaking throughout that song. And funny, was it Toronto in night one or night two that they done the doodle was To Live Is to Die and they done Orion on the same night? I was talking to Chris and I was like, oh damn, you got my two favorite instrumentals, man. But
Yeah.
he said it was pretty cool. I watched it on YouTube. But it took me a minute to kind of, like you just said, it takes a couple of seconds for them to go into the instrumental. And I was like, that's not To Live Is Today. And I'm like, oh, yes, there we go. There we go. But yeah, so then you got Nothing Else Matters, of course. Sad But True. One, Seek and Destroy. Master of Puppets. And then I'd imagine all hell broke loose with Enter Sandman.
So I want to go back just real quick, and I
Oh
want to
yeah,
talk
I
about.
just thought you were tight for time. I'm sorry,
No,
AJ.
it's good. Yeah, this is worth the time. I'm going to say it.
Okay, okay.
So I really like it. Feels that Sad But True got slowed down just a little bit, and just enough that it feels heavy again.
Oh yeah,
I feel like there have been times that it's kind of got sped up a little bit. It's kind of not bopping, but it's just like it's definitely different when they take the time with Sad But True, and they did. And listening to the other live Met recordings, it definitely is kind of slowed down. At least it feels, slowed down just that little bit, and it feels good.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, and then the roll through, the hits, they're crushing at that point. Like this is where the energy of the show is picking back up again because everybody's connecting with it. It's songs that,
everybody knows. Yeah,
everybody kind of knows, everybody's listened to. And then of course, to close out with Sandman, it's worth saying that that was the most energetic and just fun places to be, in that stadium, with this, college and community that obviously has kind of connected with that song. Um, the student section, the whole time jumping up and down, just kind of having a blast with it.
yeah,
Uh, so it definitely it was something special. And
yeah.
for the number of shows that I've seen, and probably some others that have seen, too, it's something to behold to see that connection, with Virginia Tech and Sandman. So it was definitely the highlight of the night.
Cool. That's great to hear because I'm sure, like as Metallica fans that we are, Sandman, you kind of go, okay, okay, I've heard this so many times. I'm kind of done with it. But like that, that's a different ball game. That's a different gravy, I should say.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the Virginia Tech people. Everybody was excited to have
Yeah, I'd
that.
say there was like an energy that you could feel inside that was just different. It was just
Yeah,
different.
sure was.
But even like the band got in to meet the coach I seen and like to give the jerseys with the guys' names on it and stuff like that, which was a nice touch as well. But the band, AJ, just look happy, don't they? They just look like they're really like they all look in good shape and they all look happy. I'd be interested, like they're gigging tomorrow night, right? Two nights in Columbus. Like
Hmm.
they're not getting as much of a break now. So I was kind of saying that to Chris as well. I wonder what the bodies will be like. Like they're going to have to manage the bodies very, carefully, I should say. So the 2 nights at this festival, I'd imagine it's going to be something similar to what you got. Just that kind of Syracuse, the Virginia kind of set list. I'm not sure what you think.
Well, it's back to the two shows in the weekend. So
Well,
they're
that's
they're
true
doing
too.
Friday and Sunday. So I think, it might be more akin
Maybe
to like
four.
what
Yeah, maybe
Nashville
four.
and Toronto got.
Yeah,
Um,
the frantic passes and the I disappear passes don't qualify for this one. I heard right because it's a festival.
no, yeah, it's so I think I know it's the Danny Wimmer festivals. I was actually supposed to go to the one in Columbus in 2020 before that all
Mm.
changed.
Yeah,
And I ended up going to Aftershock in 2021. So the three festivals they did that year, I went to one of them. But I don't know. Part of me thinks that there might be something special that they might kind of pull out, this weekend. But if nothing else, I think you're going to see more of the kind of weekend takeover set lists. So
yeah, yeah.
there's space to do stuff. I've
Maybe.
gotten to the point where I don't want to get too excited about, hey, here's a possibility of something that could happen. But I bet it'll be a good set list.
There's a lot of talk about the Unforgiven too. I'm sure you heard that. And I was suggesting maybe they might bring I Disappear or something back into the set list because it's not too hard on the bodies and it's not too fast and it's a fan favorite and it's probably well known because of the video and the movie and everything. So that was my curveball. I'm like, maybe they might just pull something out of complete left field and zip it in. But they've definitely been sound checking The Unforgiven too. So it's got to come up there somewhere.
Well, I don't know. I was on that bandwagon for a little bit, the B-bender guitar,
Yes.
being in the road case. But I come back to it was just James playing guitar and singing. It was not the whole band. So I don't know, what to expect with that. And the fact that they haven't played it yet, maybe not feeling like they're ready to roll it out just yet or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see it for anybody. I was hoping that they would actually bring it out on tour, but haven't seen it yet. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you catching any more shows this year? Plans?
I'm still debating. I might do the Friday night in Philly, but we're definitely doing. Our chapter has got a platform for the Landover show,
Right.
so we're going to do that one and do the platform experience. So having a blast with it.
Oh, nice, man. Nice, man. Well, I won't hold you, AJ, because I know you're tight for time, and I really, really appreciate you coming on and reviewing the show in Virginia. And thanks so much for your time. And hopefully, maybe we get you on again, and we'll talk all things Metallica.
Hey, sounds good. Hey, appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right, AJ, take it easy.
Yeah, take care.